When many people were already certain that the reign of the Californian franchise was over, something completely different from what the media imagined began to take shape far from the cameras. While pundits discussed the end of an era and declared that the team would not return to the top, on the other side, inside the training center in San Francisco, another scene was forming. The ball bouncing non-stop, young voices echoing around the court, coaches stopping plays to correct tiny details, taking a deep breath and starting again. There, quietly, a new story was beginning to be written. The Golden State Warriors refused to accept the label of a former powerhouse. Instead of settling into a comfortable place of nostalgia, they decided to walk a much riskier path, rebuilding without destroying, changing without losing their identity, evolving without denying what had turned them into a reference. It was not an improvised, total rebuild. It was a planned project, a carefully designed transition that mixed what had worked in the past with a new kind of boldness. Many outsiders looked at the drop in performance and saw decline. Inside the franchise, the view was different. It was not a fall, it was a change of phase. Instead of rushing desperately into the market in search of big names just to make headlines, the team started to look for something much harder to identify in statistics: basketball IQ, adaptability, collective understanding, hunger to win, and the humility to learn within a system that was already consolidated. The goal was never simply to repeat the golden era. The idea was far more ambitious: to create a modern continuation of it, a new internal code, an updated DNA capable of keeping up with the speed of the league without breaking with its roots. The style of play that had enchanted the world, constant off-ball movement, quick passes, instant reading, versatile players, was not abandoned. It was reinterpreted. It gained new accents, new faces, new roles. And within this process, the franchise did something decisive. It widened the map. Basketball was no longer just a game of one country, and the Warriors understood that their next stage needed to be global. Instead of looking only at their own backyard, they began to see the planet as a vast scouting ground. It was in this context that two names started to stand out, not only because of their plays, but because of what they symbolized: Rhenz Abando and Kai Sotto. They did not arrive just to make up the numbers. They arrived carrying a message. They represent a bridge between distant places, living proof that talent can be born on any corner of the world, and, if it is well developed, it can fit into one of the most demanding systems in the league. Instead of being treated as exotic gambles, they became central pieces in a cultural, technical, and emotional shift. Rhenz Abando is the kind of player who seems to play at high speed even when the clock is running normally. Explosive, instinctive, unpredictable, he does not step on court to keep the tempo, but to break it. When he attacks the rim, it is not just brute force. It is reading, change of direction, constant challenge to defenses. Floating between positions, he moves as if the game were a board on which he is always trying to find the play no one expects. At the beginning, many people saw him only as an experiment. Let's see what happens. But over time, he stopped being a curiosity and became a symbol of the courage to bet on something new before the rest of the league sees its value, a symbol of the idea that, if the system is strong, it can amplify talents that had not yet found the right environment. Kai Sotto is the perfect counterpoint. While Abando represents fire, Kai is the ground. His impact does not come only from his height or impressive wingspan, but from the way he decides to use them. He does not want to be just an obstacle in the paint. He wants to be a piece that makes the game flow. He learns how to position himself, how to protect the rim without committing unnecessary fouls, how to read his teammates' movements to deliver clean passes from the high post. Every step he takes is not random. It is connected to a reading of space, to an anticipation of what the opposing offense will try. Watching the two side by side in training is like seeing two different energies writing the same narrative. One accelerates the game, the other stabilizes it. One breaks down the opponent's defensive structure with aggression, the other rebuilds the team's security with positioning. Together, they show what the franchise wants most: Players who understand that greatness is not only about being good individually, but about adding something to the system, to the legacy, to the locker room atmosphere, to the culture. In the corridors of the training center, there is a phrase that has been going around for years and is still repeated like an unwritten rule. No player is bigger than the system. This idea crossed the franchise's peak, survived the toughest moments, and now reappears adapted, being taught to new faces from completely different backgrounds. It does not matter if you were born next door to the gym or on the other side of the world. When you walk in there, the message is the same. Either you play with the whole, or it makes no sense to be there. The result of this mentality is visible. The transition between generations, which could have been chaotic, has become something almost natural. The more experienced players did not limit themselves to giving technical advice. They started teaching meaning. They talk about attitude, about small details, about how a well-executed box out is worth as much as a three-pointer at the right time. They reinforce that it is not the isolated stat that builds a dynasty, but the interweaving of every role carried out properly. Rhenz Abando picked up this message quickly. That reckless drive to the rim, done only out of sheer desire to attack, started to gain intelligence. He learned to wait for the right moment, to understand the timing of defensive help, to use his leap not to show off, but to make the most efficient decision. His defense, which was previously driven only by instinct, started to be guided by studying opponents, reading passing lanes, anticipating. Little by little, raw talent was being polished into real impact. Kai, on the other hand, is in a deep process of learning how to turn size into presence. It is not enough to be big. You need to be well-positioned. It is not enough to have long arms. You need to use them at the exact second. In each training session, he is challenged to improve his reaction time, to understand when to go up for the block and when just to influence the shot, to master screening angles, to become a center who not only protects the rim, but the entire defensive system. This commitment goes beyond the court. In the Philippines, what is happening in San Francisco has almost become a matter of national identity. Entire families change their routine to follow the games. Children repeat the name of the Warriors as if it were part of their daily vocabulary. Neighborhood courts are painted in the franchise's colors. It is not just about supporting a foreign club. It is the feeling of seeing someone of yours being part of one of the most respected structures in world basketball. And the Warriors quickly understood the power of that, not as a marketing tool, but as something even stronger: responsibility. Suddenly, the franchise no longer represented only a region of California, but dreams spread across several countries. The team realized it was not just developing players, it was building role models. Abando and Kai stopped being just athletes and became symbols of possibility. This shift also changed the way the front office looks at the future. Before, a lot of planning revolved around a title window, a few years to build a team, try everything, and if it did not work, tear it down. Now, the logic has changed. The question is no longer just how to win now, but how to stay relevant for a long time. Instead of focusing only on peaks of performance, the internal challenge has become about the longevity of relevance. That does not mean the team has stopped chasing trophies. The ambition is still huge, but it now walks alongside another desire: to inspire, to be part of the conversation, to influence how the game is thought, to show that it is possible to renew without betraying your own essence. The young players who arrive understand that they are not fighting only for numbers and statistics, but for something broader. They dream of rings, of course, but also of meaning. To sustain this vision, preparation was taken to a new level. The video sessions, which were already intense, became even more detailed. Every step, every defensive help, every cut without the ball is reviewed, paused, discussed. Technology comes in as an ally. Heat maps reveal where players move the most. Sensors show balance, jump timing, recovery speed. But all of this is translated into clear language, close to the athlete's reality. It is not a sea of empty numbers. It is a mirror of daily progress. In one of these analyses, Abando sees himself in two versions on the screen. On one side, the phase where he was still trying to prove he deserved a place. On the other, his current phase. The difference is striking. Less anxiety, more control, fewer forced plays, more right choices. He realizes he has stopped being just an exciting spark and is becoming someone who changes games. And this lights in him a confidence that does not come from vanity, but from an awareness of evolution. Kai also watches himself from the outside. He watches specific clips of his defensive movement, comparing past decisions with the ones he makes now. He notices that he has learned to arrive earlier on help defense, to turn his body more efficiently, to save steps, to talk more with his teammates at the back. He understands that he is learning to think like a system protector, not just a rim guardian. In a league where many have size but few have feel, that puts him on a different level. The coaches follow all this and see something that does not fit into a box score. Connection. There is a group willing to grow together, open to criticism, attentive to details. A roster that has understood that the greatness which marked the previous era was not built only by absurd talent, but by each piece's willingness to fit in and sacrifice for the whole. The warrior spirit that gave the franchise its identity is still there, but now it speaks through new voices, new accents, new stories. The veterans look at the youngsters and see continuity. They realize that what they built does not end with them. It only transforms. Instead of holding on to the spotlight at any cost, they prefer to make sure the flame stays lit, even when they are no longer on the court. Silently, with small gestures, with quick conversations on the bench, they pass on the torch without putting out the light. On the outside, the fans feel this change. The energy around the team is not the same superficial euphoria of a huge blockbuster signing. It is something more mature, an excitement that mixes respect for recent history with curiosity about what is being built now. The fans are not just waiting for the past to repeat itself. They are interested in seeing how the future will be drawn. And little by little, it becomes clear that the Golden State Warriors are not just trying to relive a period of glory. They are building something else. A new phase, a new language, a new way of being great. An era in which Rhenz Abando and Kai Sotto, coming from so far away, are not just temporary supporting characters, but pieces of a global message that basketball has changed, that the world has changed, and that where you come from matters less than the mentality you bring when you step on the court. From the outside, anyone who looks in a superficial way might even think all of this is just a pretty narrative, but those who follow every game, every interview, every behind-the-scenes clip realize that the Golden State Warriors are going through a kind of second discovery of identity. It is not a restart from zero. It is as if the team had taken everything that worked in the past, stored it in a box, and is now opening it again, piece by piece, deciding what stays the same, what needs to be updated, and what must be completely reinvented. This reinvention shows up strongly in the way the team attacks and defends. The offense, which has always been a reference in terms of fluidity, still relies on constant movement, but now with new layers. Instead of depending so much on predictable actions, the system is more dynamic, full of vertical cuts, aggressive drives, changes of direction that confuse the defense. Wings who used to stay more stuck to the three-point line now move more freely into the paint, opening spaces not only for shots but for extra passes, lobs, layups, and surprise plays. It is in this scenario that Rhenz Abando finds the perfect habitat. When he receives the ball, he is almost never standing still. He is already on the move, attacking a space that a teammate helped open up. Sometimes he is not even the one who finishes the play. He drives, draws two defenders, dishes a quick pass to the perimeter, and from there a clean three-pointer is born. In other situations, he threatens the drive, takes a step back, reads the defense's reaction, and only then decides whether to speed up or slow down. His game, which once seemed like just a whirlwind of energy, starts to gain structure. It is still chaotic for the opponent, but becomes meticulously calculated within the system. On defense, the franchise has also understood that it is no longer possible to survive on individual talent alone. The league is faster, more spaced out, full of players capable of scoring from any spot on the floor. That is why the idea is to build a defense that looks like a single organism. All 5 on the court think as if they were one. Switches are drilled until they become instinct. Verbal communication mixes with signals and subtle gestures. The sense of when to pressure the ball and when to drop back is repeated over and over in video, on the court, and in conversations. Kai Sotto fits exactly into this vision of collective defense. His role is not simply to block shots. It is to correct other people's mistakes, close invisible gaps, make the attacker think twice before entering the paint. He learns to position himself in a way that the opponent feels his presence even without contact. Arms wide, body at the right angle, feet ready to slide laterally. Instead of trying to block everything, he chooses the right actions at the right time. That cuts down on fouls, increases contests, and gives confidence to his teammates, who know that if they get beaten, there is still a last intelligent line of protection. This balance between creative chaos and smart stability, between improvisation and discipline, is what makes the Warriors' new project stand out. On many teams, young players arrive with the obligation to be saviors. Here, Abando and Kai arrived with another mission: to fit in, to learn, to grow, and little by little start influencing the team's identity. The result is that they do not face the destructive pressure of carrying everything on their backs, but feel the healthy weight of honoring a legacy that already exists. The locker room has become the true command center of this transformation. There, before the game, you do not see only fiery speeches. There is an atmosphere of focus, respect, and exchange. The veterans talk less about showing who we are and more about respecting what we have built and continuing to write the story. The younger players absorb every word, but they also begin to express themselves, to bring in their perspectives, their international experiences, their views of the game shaped by other basketball schools. This mix of viewpoints makes a difference. Players who grew up in North America bring one type of physical and tactical reading. Those who came from Europe bring another. Those who came from Asia carry even more nuances, influences from different leagues, national team experience, the weight of representing an entire country. Inside that locker room, all of this comes together and organizes itself around a central principle. The jersey has a meaning that goes beyond the NBA. It represents a way of playing, but also a way of thinking. On any given big game night, the atmosphere in the arena helps you understand the size of all this. Chase Center packed, lights low, the crowd mixing generations that lived through different moments of the team. Some remember the first steps of the winning era. Others discovered basketball because of the Warriors, and others are seeing a live game for the first time. But when the ball goes up, everyone is connected to the same feeling. Something important is still happening there. During one of these games, in a tight third quarter, the opposing team strings together a run and opens up a lead. For a few minutes, the arena gets tense. The defense looks a bit disorganized, shots are not falling, and that old doubt the media loves to feed comes back. Does this team still have the same spirit as before? It is in this kind of moment that you see whether the culture is real or just talk. The coach calls a timeout, gathers the group, and says a few words. The veterans take responsibility, but not in an authoritarian way. They remind everyone of what the team practices every day. Trust the structure, trust the adjustments, trust the reading of the game, do not panic. Back on the floor, the adjustment kicks in. The defense starts denying passing lanes. Communication gets louder. The team pressures the ball as a unit. On one particular possession, the opponent tries to attack the paint. There is Kai, well-positioned, forcing the attacker to change his route. He does not get the block, but forces a tough shot that hits the rim and comes out. The rebound is Abando's, and he immediately bursts forward. 2 dribbles, change of direction. One teammate spaces out to the corner, another cuts towards the basket. Instead of forcing the layup, he reads the defense and fires a quick pass to the perimeter. Clean three-pointer. Almost as if the whole arena breathed together, the deficit shrinks, the mood shifts, and in that moment, you understand what is really being built. A new way of living the philosophy that made the Warriors famous, now with different protagonists. From a global point of view, all of this spreads like a wildfire of interest. In the Philippines, with every solid performance from Kai or explosive play from Abando, new videos, new analyses, new comments pop up. People who had never cared so much about an NBA team start following practices, behind-the-scenes content, interviews. In other Asian countries, the phenomenon is similar. Young players look at the screen and do not see only unreachable stars. They see someone who speaks the same language, who came from courts similar to theirs, wearing a heavy jersey and proving that this path is possible. The franchise realizes that this emotional bond is an enormous force. It is not just about selling jerseys, but something deeper. When a kid in Manila, in Cebu, in Davao, picks up a ball on an improvised court and imagines he is at Chase Center, he is connecting with a culture the Warriors helped create. When he thinks about cutting without the ball, making the extra pass, staying in constant motion, he is reproducing a mentality that has crossed borders. That is why, inside the organization, the player development department has become almost a school of mentality. There, every athlete is seen not just as a statistic, but as a complete project. Physical and technical training is mixed with conversations about reading the game, emotional control, responsibility, purpose. No one is treated as a product. They are treated as partners in a project that needs to last much longer than a single sensational season. The coaches know the clock is ticking for everyone. The veterans will not be there forever, and that is why the preparation of the young players is so obsessive. They need to understand the system so deeply that in the future, they are the ones responsible for teaching the next generation. That is the real secret of a dynasty that does not crumble over time. It becomes a school. It turns into a language that is passed on. Rhenz Abando and Kai Sotto have already started, little by little, to take on that kind of posture. In some practices, you can see them pulling rookies aside, pointing out small details, correcting positioning, explaining the right way to fight over a screen, the ideal timing to go for an offensive rebound. They are not the owners of the locker room yet, but they already play an intermediate role. Young enough to understand the weight of arriving now, but self-aware enough to see that they have already learned things others have not learned yet. This internal transition is just as important as any play drawn up on the whiteboard. It is what ensures that the Warriors do not depend on a single face, that no player is mistaken for the franchise itself. When the culture is bigger than the names, roster changes stop being the end of the world and become just another stage in the story. At the same time, the league starts to notice this difference. While other teams go through cycles of ups and downs, between painful rebuilds and rushed attempts to get back to the top, the Golden State Warriors seem to travel along their own path. Yes, there are losses, bad moments, nights when nothing works. But even then, there is something in common. The team never plays disconnected from its own idea. It never abandons its philosophy. On debate shows, the narrative has started to change. The question is no longer, are the Warriors done? Now the question is, how are they managing to stay relevant even after so many years? Analysts point to the mix between veterans and young players, the focus on profiles outside the traditional radar, the patience in developing international talent. And all of this comes from a central understanding. It is not just about winning games. It is about building a way of existing within the NBA. Inside the franchise, this view is repeated all the time. From the most basic staff to the top leadership, everyone knows titles are the result of a job well done, not the only goal. The main focus is to keep alive an identity that has already proved to the world that basketball can be played in a different way, more collective, more creative, more thoughtful. By adding to that the cultural diversity brought by players like Abando and Kai, this identity gains emotional depth, and that depth can be felt in the stands. The fan who celebrates at Chase Center today is not there only for nostalgia. They want to see what comes next. They want to discover which new stories will be born. They want to follow the growth of players who are still finding themselves but already show something special. Every well-worked passing sequence, every well-executed double team, every play in which the team seems to move as if guided by a single mind, reinforces the feeling that the essence remains intact. The big question hanging in the air is no longer whether this new project will repeat, number by number, what has already been achieved in the past. The real question is, how far can this new way of thinking take the Golden State Warriors? To what extent can this model of school, culture, and mentality influence the next generation of players around the world? At the center of all this, Rhenz Abando and Kai Sotto keep doing what they know best. Training more than most people see, carrying the expectations of entire countries without letting that paralyze them, honoring a system that existed before them and that, if all goes well, will continue after them. They are, at the same time, consequence and seed. Consequence of a mentality that believed in them when few did, and seed of future talents who, a few years from now, will look at both of them and think, if they made it, I can too. That is how the Warriors turn the rumor of the end of a cycle into the beginning of a new chapter. Instead of denying that time passes, the franchise embraces the passing of time as an opportunity to reinvent itself. Instead of living as a prisoner of the peak it once had, it chooses to build another kind of greatness, one that is not measured only in trophies, but in impact, in culture, in legacy. And this is the story that is being written right now, play by play, practice by practice, decision by decision. A story in which the jersey is heavy but does not crush, in which the past inspires but does not trap, in which the future is not something to fear but an invitation. If you believe that this new era of the Golden State Warriors is not just about basketball but about legacy, identity, and transformation, then stay with us on this journey. Drop your like now to strengthen this work. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you always receive firsthand the next analyses, behind-the-scenes stories, tales of overcoming and the evolution of names like Rhenz Abando and Kai Sotto within this project. And it does not stop there. Comment down below what you expect from this new phase of the Warriors, what your view is on the future of the franchise, and which players you think can still surprise. Your participation is essential for this community to keep growing and for us to continue bringing content that goes far beyond the scoreboard, showing basketball as culture, narrative, and inspiration.